What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another review, a spoiler review, in fact, for The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Episode 2 is here. I'm one of the crazy people staying up at midnight to watch this brand new episode, and I'm so excited to be here discussing this episode with you guys, so make sure to comment down below and let me know your guys' thoughts, theories, all sorts of things you guys think might happen in next week's episode, as well as what your guys' thoughts were on this episode. As also, if you guys are new here, hit that like and subscribe button so we can keep talking the Falcon and the Winter Soldier every single week, because that's my favorite thing. I mean, WandaVision, Mandalorian, that is the best discussions I've ever had so far when it comes to TV, and I'm looking forward to having more of those conversations with you guys. Again, full spoilers. If you haven't seen the episode, here we go, jumping in. Overall, last week's episode I really liked. I like how it has the big action set pieces in the beginning, but what it really settles down to is these two characters, Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes themselves, and really focusing in on both of them. Because for me, those are two characters that I feel like have so much depth waiting to jump into, but in particular, they haven't gotten that amount yet. They've got a little bit, but not enough. Last week's episode very much established that, but this week's episode continues that. Again, kind of still having that same overall tone, setting up the mission, doing the mission, and then the back half of the episode is all very much not just exposition, but character exploration. And, you know, that's not going to be for everyone. But for me, it's a lot. In a world that's post-blip, after Endgame, when everyone disappeared, this is some of the most intriguing stuff that I think Marvel has explored so far. And I'm so excited to see what all these shows, and in general, what the future movies entail with all of this crazy information. Because all we've done so far is stay on Earth, whether it's WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Spider-Man Far From Home. There's a lot more to the universe and in general everywhere around it. Now, the thing going into this episode was, again, there are three special characters to really talk about when it comes down to this episode in particular. Some minor ones that I feel like will have a very strong influence throughout the rest of the season. But one of the big things to kind of start out with is the big bomb drop at the last week's episode when we got introduced to the brand new Captain America. And now we know his name to be John Walker. Now, if you're fans of the comic books, you know that this guy is U.S. agent. You know there's a whole history load behind him. And now I'm not versed too much on John Walker. I know the bare minimum. This is definitely going to be an interesting character, and getting Wyatt Russell to play this character, phenomenal. Great performance right off the bat. And I love how, like, he is not our Captain America. Like, we can all say that. He is not our Captain America. I don't know if you can see little Steve Rogers back there holding Mjolnir, but he is not our Captain America. But it is an interesting character coming into this gigantic role that needs to be filled, or at least that the government thinks need to be filled, and they're using him very much as a propaganda, just like Steve Rogers was used in the original Captain America. Those parallels are super strong here, as we're seeing his introduction to the world at that football stadium, of him signing autographs. It's all sorts of things like that. But of course it comes into play when he does join Bucky and Sam in their fight scene. Wasn't expecting that. And overall, what I can really say is from the trailers, we've pretty much gotten every single piece of material we've seen, besides Zemo putting on the mask and a couple things with Sharon Carter. And I'm really liking that, because what it's going to start showing is kind of how WandaVision did. There's going to be a lot of stuff that is going to be up for surprises, and I'm so excited to see where that all ends up going. But, of course, with John Walker, gotta catch my breath, but of course with John Walker, the big thing with that is, of course, him jumping into that action scene was kind of surprising, and him kind of going towards the end to get Bucky out of jail opened up the doors a little bit more. But his little sinister thing here is when he goes, "Don't get in my way." There's a lot of elements behind there. Is that, yes, we saw someone that really cared for him. I'm guessing that was his wife, some sort of love interest, maybe just someone, maybe I misinterpreted all that sorts of stuff. But, you know, him sitting there, there's a lot of pressure on him, and I think is an interesting character. Again, I know he's not our Captain America, but as a character, it's very interesting to see how this is going. And again, who is going to hold up that mantle? You know, it's not going to be Bucky. He is the White Wolf, and I like how they really brought that to life. You know, we kind of got hinted at that. We knew about that in Black Panther and Infinity War. But if you're from a comic book standpoint, the White Wolf is a big symbolization. I really like that. They gave that mantle to Bucky himself, and they kind of took that off the table. It's really between Sam Wilson and John Walker at this point. And, you know, for me, I think Sam Wilson deserves it. That's the person I want to have the shield. Same with Steve Rogers. but it's interesting parallels to all the rest, and I really like what they were able to do with John Walker's character. Now, jumping over to Sam Wilson himself, we didn't get any more of his family stuff or him dealing with financial problems, which I thought was actually really interesting last week's episode. What this episode really entails, again, going to that action set piece, which was very exhilarating, tying all back to Winter Soldier and having that same style and tone, very grounded tone with, you know, now finding out that all these people are super soldiers adds a whole new thing of how did they get that serum? Where did they get that? And the fact that now we know at the end of this episode that Zemo himself is still in jail, because I was waiting for him to show up by the end and be like, oh, you know, I'm the mastermind behind this. How are they doing this? There's a lot of intriguing aspects to see how that might come about. I feel like John Walker's hiding a little bit behind his back because we don't know. Was he blipped? Was he not? I don't particularly remember them saying anything in that episode, and I think that kind of adds a whole nother layer. But again, that action scene was great between Bucky and Sam fighting those super soldiers on the whole entire car chase. Really kind of gave me reminiscence of Mad Max Fury Road, a car chase within a fight scene, and it just worked so well. How they bounce back and forth, and just excellent CGI and, again, cinematography in all those moments. John Walker, of course, joins in, adds a nice little flair to that as well. They all get away. And again, that discussion between them, we see how Falcon and, of course, Bucky are feeling after this. And, you know, before they even go on their mission, they have that great banter with one another that, again, we saw started off in Civil War, but it's continuously just gone about. And it's one of the best things that I've ever seen between both of them. Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan are both phenomenal actors, and they really just work wonders off one another. And I really much appreciate how they are able to do that with one another. Now, of course, that great discussion, of course, is it the big three? Wizards, androids, or aliens? I thought that was funny. Their whole discussion with Gandalf, that was a blast too. Kind of stuck out to me overall. But in that element, once they leave the mission, Bucky, in a sense, you see a lot of pain and torture inside of him. We'll get to the ending when him, the therapist, and Sam are sitting in that room discussing, but we see that he has a lot of... He's pissed at Sam. He wanted him to keep the shield. He believes that he should have been Captain America, and if not, then... You know, if Steve Rogers believed in you and he was wrong, then is he wrong about me? There's a lot of PTSD and elements that is torturing Bucky himself, and a lot of elements that for me, feel are really important for both of their characters. And I really like, again, seeing how their main mentor, their main friend and companion is gone, and now they are both trying to fill that void with each other in a weird sense. And, you know, it's just really interesting, to say the least, of how they are really handling these two different characters. But, of course, what it comes down to is after the mission, Bucky tells him, I have to have you meet someone. And we meet a guy who Bucky's known to be a super soldier this entire time. Now, that kid of his, there's an interesting particular element to him. I've seen some things that this kid was casted. I don't exactly know what the character is, but I feel like that kid's going to come into play. I don't know his name particularly well, but I'm interested to see what Isaiah's kid or grandkid might really bring into the fold. And if you guys have heard of the news, if you know the character, comment down below, let me know. But there's some big things coming to play, especially when it comes to the Young Avengers, I feel. Now, of course, that whole interesting concept with them talking, but them leaving. You know, when the cops pull up, I necessarily didn't think that scene was completely needed. It feels like the whole racial thing was a little... Okay, like, it's there. It's like, really, you don't recognize Sam Wilson, the guy who pretty much saved the world multiple times, especially in Avengers Endgame. Like, it's kind of crazy how the Avengers flair kind of goes. And, you know, it is a nice touching aspect. I'm like that they touched on it. But for me, I kind of wish they would have... You know, I didn't think it was needed. It kind of halted the pacing just a little bit for the episode. But, of course, Bucky gets arrested. He gets out of jail. They have that therapist discussion. And that's where it kind of comes down to the meat of it. Of course, Bucky really letting go how he is feeling. They have that great banter. They move on forward. They're out of the jail. And, you know, John Walker says what he says to them. And, of course, right after that, they decide, let's team up. Then after this, we'll go our separate ways. Which, come on, we know they're not going to go their separate ways. We know they're going to end up teaming up and being friends and all sorts of stuff like that. We got 4 episodes, guys. 4 episodes. And thank God these are at least 48 minutes or so, because I need that 40 minutes, man. You know, when I was getting the 20-minute stuff from WandaVision, I wasn't trying to be spoiled or anything, but I needed more time. But... Of course, they talk about a little bit, mention Sharon Carter, but now we know where they're going next week's episode to discuss with Zemo what is going on and how are these super soldiers coming into play. Adding in here a little bit more, talking about one more side character, is this new character that it has the super serum in her. Who is she? Where is she from? I think they're interesting villains. I'm curious to see if they get a little bit more exploration because I think that's what I'm really much needing from them. Besides that, though, I think the second episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier is excellent. I think this is a really good episode, again, bringing about that great action set pieces, but overall adding in the things that I really much care about inside this world is exploring these two types of characters and the post-blip world. I do like that they touched on race a little bit in here. I hope they touch a little bit more into that in a little more of a deeper, relevant element, but I feel like the best thing about this is really touching on both these characters on a psychological level, and again, how they feel and how they are after Steve Rogers has left them. I think that is the best element of this all. Don't get me wrong, the action is phenomenal. I love the action set pieces, but I really like touching on these two characters, and really shout out to Disney and Marvel and all sorts of stuff on really much focusing in on John Walker a little bit in this episode, because I didn't expect that to, and I feel like it's smarter to do it in the beginning, get that out of the way, kind of let us know who this guy is, than kind of just leaving up to a mystery like some of the stuff that WandaVision did. Overall, though, guys, I enjoyed this episode. I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. What were your guys' theories, thoughts for next week's episode? Hit that like and subscribe button as well, so we can keep talking the Falcon and the Winter Soldier and all sorts of Marvel, geeky, TV, movie stuff over here, because I am the Wolf of Geek Street, and I just am so happy to have you guys tuning in over here. So thank you guys once again, and of course, until next time, stay classy.